Hey everyone, this is Gary Kayye and welcome to this launch event. This is a special event that we're doing today that's talking about elevating AV integration thanks to our sponsor LAVNCH. Now, here's the deal. What does elevating AV integration mean? Well, there's so much opportunity out there that we always miss because we always focus on the core business of the AV industry. Meeting rooms, classrooms, projectors, monitors, signage, all that kind of stuff. But you know what's interesting is audio, and specifically microphone technology, has become center stage in the last 3 or 4 years because of what the world has been through, and it's really changed and forced companies to innovate significantly in what they can offer and how they can solve problems around the world. One of those companies is LAVNCH. So this session, this launch event, is called Elevating AV Integration because we're talking about embracing advanced discussion microphones, and you'll understand what a discussion microphone is in diverse environments rather than just a microphone. So I'm excited to be here. I'm Gary Kayye. I'm with the Rave Agency, and I'm excited that you joined us on launch. For those that are watching us on LinkedIn right now, you're getting a sneak peek at a live event that we're doing on our platform Launch. If you want to join on Launch, the advantage is you can ask me questions and you can partake in our polls, and that will enter you into drawings and fun things like that. Those of you who are already on Launch, just a little platform review. First off, to the right of me there is the Q&A. That's where you can ask questions. As you ask those questions, I can ask the panelists those questions. So as you learn things or you want more detailed information, you can ask that information and I'll make sure it gets answered. It may be already addressed in some of the questions we have coming up. And in that case, I won't ask your question directly, but throw it out there anyway, because we want to make sure we take this time carefully to address everything that anybody might be interested in. Below me is polling. We've strategically placed some poll questions here to get educated on what you know about this technology and what you want to know about this technology. Below that is networking. Networking is where all of you who are joining here live can talk to each other and actually you can exchange ideas, but you can also comment there. We'll watch the comments down there in networking as well, just in case that's where you're asking a question instead of the Q&A box to the right. Anyway, this is a special launch event, and it's really about and brings you an opportunity to sell more AV gear in applications where a lot of times the customers aren't even asking for it, meaning they don't know how to ask for what they need. They just want better audio. They want better microphones. They want to be able to hear people better. We all know when we go to a concert, there's a big difference between hearing something and understanding something. Well, that happens in a meeting room, and especially when you have remote presenters or you have remote attendees. And discussion microphones have really innovated. At one time, they were only relegated to, you'd see them in the UN when they would show images of people in the UN, and everyone had their own individual mic, and they press a button and the microphone would turn red or green to indicate that this person had a question, and then they'd be addressed by the head of the UN, and they'd be able to ask their question. It would be translated into different languages, and then that question would be answered. Well, now we have the ability to put those same microphones, that same technology, anywhere. We can put it in a classroom. We can put them in an auditorium. We can put them in meeting. We can put them in courtrooms, so that, I mean, think about how many courts have gone electronic now, where you have witnesses that are joining from all around the world potentially, and they have to be heard. They have to be able to be seen as well. This is the technology for that. So thank you for joining me, and we're going to introduce you to some really cool technology and some new people that you may not have met. And we're going to address some specific case studies. Welcome, gentlemen. First off, I want to introduce Peter Papageorge. Peter Papageorge is the Vice President of Sales at LAVNCH Conference. Peter, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Gary. Thank you for inviting us today.
Well, I appreciate you being on. Before I introduce the next two gentlemen, I have a question for you. For those that don't know who you are, I've seen you for years and years and years at ISE and other shows at Infocom. So I know a little bit about you. I know about the projects that you do, but who is LAVNCH, if people aren't familiar with your company?
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing it up. I think what you positioned was exactly right. Our history goes back 75 years, and most people in America have no idea who LAVNCH is. and you're right. The UN, NATO, European Union, and now the State Department, World Bank, large institutions and parliaments around the world We are very good at managed meetings, meaning voting and interpretation and Robert's Rule of Order and all those things. But in America, obviously nobody wants to push a button, and it's not as formal in many, many places. But the history of Televic is that significant. Over 1,000 people strong worldwide, 300 engineers. We own our own factories in TAA compliant countries. So the federal government, when they found that out for the U.S., said, "Oh wow, this is a real alternative," and keep expanding because of the pandemic. It kind of changed our trajectory beyond just our core. But that's,
we're going to talk about that, because that
Sure.
is why we're here today, is because it used to be that the people that knew who Televic were the ones that were doing these big delegate-based conferences, right? But now it's open to everyone. So bring in, along those lines, I want to introduce Adam Lofredo. Adam is the vice president of the Justice Division of CTI. So I'm going to ask you two separate questions here, Adam. First off, CTI. Tell everybody who CTI is. I mean, they may remember you as, in the old days, like a few years ago, Conference Technologies, but now CTI.
Yeah, wow. What, obviously been here for 10 years, and a big growth pattern for CTI, and one of the main reasons why I joined. CTI is a national and international audiovisual integration live events company. What our main goal is, connecting people through technology. So with that being said, we're in our 36th year. We have 36 offices nationally, and we really take pride in delivering a fantastic experience to our customers.
Well, what's interesting is you have a justice division. So I'm guessing you're, considering your background there, you do courtrooms, among other things.
Or you're in trouble.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the, yeah, exactly. Obviously, appearing here with my court background, but justice really kind of forms three practices: law enforcement, judicial, and corrections. One of the great things about CTI is they do believe in the subject matter expert group. So not only do we have justice, we have broadcast, we have lighting, we have many other disciplines, house of worship. But my specialty, obviously, is justice, and traditionally with courts are one of the biggest proponents of that.
Yeah, and in my industry experience, the most famous court case that I had an opportunity to actually play a small part in was the O.J. Simpson trial, where we actually did all the connection when I was at Extron back in the day to get that image on the projector from the Elmo overhead system, which was kind of interesting. And that was the first time I remember AV being used in the court. And now it's integrated everywhere. I also asked Brian Houdek to join us, who is a sales design consultant at CTI. Brian, thank you very much for joining us. Tell us a little bit about what you do for CTI.
So Gary, thank you for having me and Adam join the call. As my title says, I'm just a normal sales guy. I happen to be in the industry almost 20 years, but with CTI for about 3.5. And I kind of cut my teeth within the healthcare vertical, and that's seemingly where leadership has kind of steered me towards, is mostly within healthcare as a vertical.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you very much. So, Peter, I want to come back to you, and
Sure.
I want you to talk about sort of like that delegate microphone, how during the pandemic it kind of led you a different direction. Explain that, and explain where the opportunities are specifically. Like, why are these guys here from CTI, and where is the low-hanging fruit?
Yeah, no, thanks. So beyond our core of traditional managed meetings, during the pandemic, it was very clear that people had to meet safely and hook up to Teams and Zoom. It was like the number one thing that everybody needed to figure out immediately. So many end users sought us out for different reasons, and they found that said, "Oh wow, you have this product with a microphone and a built-in speaker." And like I said, America doesn't really get it, meaning in our AV industry, it's not a popular SKU for integrators such as Brian and Adam to, say, let's use this. But when it came down to bringing audio to where everybody was in separation and plexiglass, that's what started it. And then it was like, oh, wait, this is valuable. Wired, wireless, with video or not, that's all Televic does, is discussion type microphones. And it started to roll from there. So all of a sudden it was like, wait a second, and not just the parliaments, the state governments and the feds and things like that. This is now corporations, it's city government, it's schools, it's courts. And that's where it kind of expanded, where Adam and Brian specifically, we worked together over the last few years on some significant projects. And the Quartz is the one that stood out the most. And that's what drove all of our development and expansion, meaning we changed our systems according to what the market needed and the AV designers needed. And it worked. And so that's kind of the story today. I can go into many examples.
Well, what's interesting, what's interesting here is that you're providing sort of a turnkey approach to a courtroom, for example, whereas before, Adam, to do a courtroom, you'd have to integrate multiple different products to get the same result, right? Because you'd have to have ceiling mics connected to some kind of DSP somewhere else that's doing the processing, then also restream that. I mean, it was, you're now being given, Adam, correct me if I'm wrong here, you're sort of being given an all-in-one approach to solving this problem.
Partially.
Well, yeah, and what it does, it brings in tools that we've always needed in our industry for the courts. You know, historic courtrooms tend to be large. They are acoustic nightmares, right? You can't always put speakers where you need them. Infrastructure is lacking. So by using delegation microphones in this technology, we're able to put microphones where they need to go. In addition, having the speakers in the right location, that helps with the acoustics in the room, feedback, all the other things that we need to do in our traditional courtroom. So it's something I've been pushing for years.
Well,
yeah. Well,
Peter, you used this term discussion microphone, and it was a question I wanted to ask, but also came in as part of our Q&A. Can you define exactly what is a discussion system versus sort of like the delegate microphone?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think the terms can be interchangeable.
Yep.
A delegate microphone, discussion microphone. At the base, when you think about having a microphone and audio all on one standard shielded Cat5 system, nothing proprietary, and you go, here's our engine and our devices, you hook them up, and you have a microphone and an audio system all in one.
Right. So basically the mic is there and the speaker is there.
Built into the station. Right. It's all right there.
All right. So I think we have an image to show of what that looks like. We'll pop up here in just a second of what one of those looks like. But, you know, a lot of times they're on a gooseneck, right? And they may have buttons where you press to say, I want to talk, or, you know, there you go.
Well, that's where it goes from discussion to delegate. If you said, I want the formal process to have voting, and I want to have management, I want to see agendas, that's where it gets into the delegate side of our history.
Right.
But just basic, what Adam brought up, honestly, was the foundation of the courts. The people like CTI, Adam specifically and CTI, there's tons of technology that is in the courtroom besides ours. We're now a foundation that brought the audio in to help with acoustics and capability, but now can work within his DSP system, which we could never do before. And that's the uniqueness of why we're evolving together.
And I think that was one of the challenges, Gary, is that we needed it to integrate into our traditional DSP. We needed to be able to create mix minus systems. And in the traditional delegate system, it's one speaker at a time. A court doesn't operate like that. You know, you're going to have people talking over each other. We need to be able to hear them when they talk. So it was really kind of working on combining those technologies, but making it simple for the user. We don't have a separate microphone and speaker sitting on a desk. We have an all-in-one that looks really nice and that we can fully integrate into our complex audio processing that we do in courts.
Yeah, we just showed a diagram of how you do that connection. I want to do a quick shout out to Clay Cooper. Thank you very much for the comment. He said the video content signals coming from these presenters and from our platform is really crisp and clear. He's loving the webinar. So thanks, Clay, for watching. We do work hard on that, and our production team, I'm sure, is proud of that. So we actually asked a poll question of how many of those that are joining have done discussion systems in the last 3 years. We'll be curious to see, now that they understand the definition of that, what that is. What markets specifically, Peter, would you say have benefited from the traditional approach of this product category?
Oh, well, the traditional approach is large-scale government and city management of sorts, or city clerks and city councils and things. And then,
so when you do city council
that's
meetings,
the standard. Yeah, that's when somebody needs voting and requests to speak and all these things. That's our core. But the foundation was what Adam brought up is a very key point. Traditionally, our category, not just Televic, our entire little niche category of discussion delegate microphones, it used to be where you can only, you can't get in and out of it from a design point of view. It was either you did it our way or you did it the DSP
It's all
way.
one loop.
Yeah,
and
that's where I've known Adam for decades, and he said, "Look, I love your stuff. I just can't use it." Well, that's what we changed because of the pandemic. Now we opened it up with DSP mode and said, "You use all of our mics and speakers any way you want. We're going to give you routing. We're going to give you a combination. We're going to give you control, APIs, and you do it your way." And Adam, that's kind of where we've been for the last 2 years, and now we see it expand rapidly. And
does that include Dante?
Companies, Dante, AES67,
Okay,
and BiAmp actually assisted with us there too. They found what we were doing with the National Center for State Courts about a year and a half ago, and it was a hybrid hearing initiative that was very key to this development and expansion. And for us to play in the courts, we had to change our system to have different features, different capabilities. And BiAmp actually jumped in and said, "Can we help with this?" And they said, "Sure." I go, "Why?" Well, we feel that your hardware is so significant and you're opened it up to the overall design. This is a win-win for everybody. And then the door just flew open. And that's where Brian and other applications and corporate, it just exploded. It exploded in a very good way. But new tools for the base of any AV solution, and Adam specifically in courts and Brian for healthcare and universities, we've seen the mix just kind of, it's a new solution for the United States. Europe and everywhere around the world knows what this technology is, but this is new for America.
Yeah, and one additional add that was really beneficial is at every microphone location, we also have connections for headsets, right? Which gives us the capability, especially in a courtroom, plaintiff, defense, witness, we can actually provide second language audio to those headsets, which is really key in a courtroom when you have to provide language access, right? And we're doing that all mixing and routing all through the DSP side, but we're able to deliver it at one point.
Yeah, and so in addition to translation, you also have the ability to make it easier for people to actually hear. I've been in courts before where you have a witness that's barely talking. The judge only cares that he or she can hear it and is not paying attention to the audience or anyone else in the room, and maybe even the other attorney might not be able to hear them. And I've actually seen them put on headphones before using a system like this, so I know it's being used. Now, what challenges does this product group give AV integrators? I mean, in a way, I think you have to kind of rethink the way you're doing things. I mean, because I see this as a teacher, I see this in large auditorium applications as a game changer, because you have these big classrooms. I see Brian shaking his head. Yeah, I'm curious what you think. You have these large lecture halls that used to be stadium style seating that are now more collaborative. Like they have these tables where you're sitting together more in a collaboration environment. And those that are sitting in the back, if they're not strong speakers or, project their voice, they're not going to be heard. And what are we going to do? The option is a catch box, but that's not very professional, right, Brian? Right.
Same thing with large boardrooms, Gary. I mean, to your point, once they went agnostic on DSP, it was a huge game changer for me in healthcare. And as you had said, based on the higher ed, we recently built out a few auditoriums with Peter's help. To your point, stadium type of seating applications can't really be heard in the rear of the room. Big time game changer. And to touch upon the headphone jack and being able to hear a little bit more clearly, one of the use cases that I had given you guys for University of Chicago Medicine in particular, they wanted specifically some headphone interfaces so that their board of directors could hear everyone better. Simply said.
There's a lot of move also in education for future discussions about the future of education, whether it's huddle rooms or it's traditional, and thinking about the person in a small lecture hall, the third guy in the third seat, let's say, has to debate the guy behind him and Dubai and Pittsburgh all at the same time. If you have an infrastructure of microphones and audio spread across, it's just looking at the room differently. And you go, oh, wired or wireless, doesn't matter, custom or tabletop, and gooseneck or other, there's many options, but it's the concept of how we will look at rooms now having this capability. So a real manufacturer that can provide the hardware, but it really is on Brian and Adam and integrators and consultants to say, design away You now have another tool. How else can you bring that many speakers, that many mics easily? Oh, and don't forget the back end. The back end of Televic's fun because we're just talking AV right now. But let's say you design a system to say, would your customer like to try request to speak mode? Most people in America go, what's that? And you go, well, people have to wait in line. I go, well, wait, nobody wants to wait anything. And by the way, that is one other point, Gary. In America, nobody wants to push a button, right? My European colleagues often say, everybody pushes a button. I go, not in America. So having live mics and live speakers on our systems now, with and without DSP, is another big change for Televic, because now people can go, good, we can just talk. Yep, we can. And it changed the game on a lot of perceptions of what this category was, and no more.
Okay, so some questions have come in. We need some clarification on what the BiAmp and involvement and integration is. Like, give us a scenario where that comes into play.
No. So what was really cool was, and actually Adam was part of this too, is when we were together, we said, what is the courtroom system? It's really 6 to 8 microphones, depending on who you talk to and what court. And you said, can we have a basic thing that says, here's 6, let's say 6 Televic microphone stations, judge, witness, prosecution, defense, clerk, and a podium. And you go, okay, now we're going to go in DSP mode. So the BiAmp basically said, here's your program. We're going to take all your microphones. We're going to put an echo canceller on every mic. We're going to EQ them differently, compress them. We're going to go through leveling. We're going to go through everything that you normally would do with mics and ceiling speakers. And then all of a sudden it was like, but we have to route to the UC computer. We have to route individual feeds to the court recorder. No problem. This was the BiAmp assistance, meaning, so you're just using Televic hardware to get the audio where it needs in a nice hardware perspective, but then route it where it needs to be. That was key. So BiAmp really stepped up and said, on their cornerstone, it's there. You can pull it down. Adam, you and I have gone back and forth on this deployment for a number of court projects and things. So seeing an industry need it, because remote's not going away, and seeing a company like BiAmp to be able to say, hey, we get what you're doing. This is cool for AV, let alone courts. So, and then it expanded to other things beyond courts.
All right. So one of the things that I asked you about was Dante. I think I know the answer to this next one. Somebody just asked if any of these also have NDI integration. I'm guessing you don't have that yet, but have you thought about NDI?
You know what? Our company, having 300 plus engineers, is involved in expanding everywhere. So the answer is yes, but where we're at right now is sticking on the audio side, and where we're at with Dante AES67. We have a new system that's launching for Infocom, which is a plug and play discussion only, not delegate. It's audio only, but that's AES67, and working again with the DSP and making sure that we can provide that ultimate cost price point that's very critical to courts and others, meaning, look, the budgets still are budgets, and we need to make sure that we have products from very small to very large. So if we need to do $1 million projects for World Bank and JP Morgan, that's fine. But if we can help the rural court or the tribal court for a few $1,000s, why not? So, and this is where we've expanded to.
So obviously part of that, you mentioned it, in fact, is wireless, right? You don't have the ability to put in a wired infrastructure everywhere. Yeah. Tell me, how this works in a wireless application, how popular that is, what percentage of it is wireless versus wireless?
You know what, Brian, a lot of what you worked on was wireless, wasn't it? What was your, which projects did we do together that were wireless for you?
Oh boy, we've got the one that at University of Chicago Medicine, we have wireless. I think we have upwards of 60, 65 wireless G4 mics. I believe we have 200 plus at St. Jude.
And all wireless. Why did they want wireless? Why did they want wireless though?
Well, so in particular, University of Chicago is a unique application. Number one, based on the wireless, they didn't have infrastructure. I'm also in the middle of Chicago, so having to have, ceiling mounted devices that are continuous pathways, all the infrastructure that ultimately would be required to ceiling mic everything was essentially a little bit more cost prohibitive. But where we built this out at University of Chicago Medicine, it's actually a conferencing floor. So what they wanted to do was kind of build out their boardroom as instance number one. And what our plan is, Peter, is next fiscal, we're going to continue to put out the G4 WAPs in all of the different conference spaces throughout the floor, which allows them flexibility to take their wireless devices, bring them to a completely different conference room, press on, and it will pair with that WAP. It's completely it completely changed the game for us during our needs-based discussions with their leadership team. It did.
Yeah, and being able, Gary, to provide, and because the discussion up until now was very specific to, you know, how we route, how we install in verticals. Now wireless, that's just a few examples. Wireless, when people go, can we meet out on the lawn?
Yeah.
You know, outside of Microsoft, the answer is technically yes. We have, in fact, I'm going to a golf conference where we're sponsoring a hole. We have a GPS, we have a UPS for our access point. We're gonna have a live system on the golf course. Why? Because you can. So if we can have 128 units, yeah, I'm not going to bring that many to the golf thing. I think they'll throw me out. But ideally, you go, why not? 128 units with mics and audio like this within 90 seconds.
Well, here's one of the questions. I don't know if you're going to be able to answer this. I'm curious how you would answer this, because this is a question from Eric Hamilton, who's watching live. He says, how does the LAVNCH system compare to the Shure Microflex complete wireless system?
Well, yeah,
so
sure.
How do you decide when do you put in a system like that versus a system like yours?
You know, Shure is an amazing manufacturer, and nobody will ever state otherwise. I think that our core is everything that we said, meaning this is all we do. We don't do performance mics. We don't do line array mics. We just do this, right? So we have 2 wireless systems, number one. Number two, we have 2 batteries per then that go up to 24 hours. Our rack mount is 10 units in 1 U. And our spaces, we can put 2 units side by side in the same space of 1 MXCW. And you go, okay. And again, nothing against Shure's an amazing company, but again, this is our wheelhouse. I really believe that our hardware, our infrastructure, and we can do wired and wireless. We were working on a project just yesterday, wired diodes and wireless units to come in and plug when you need to expand. The cosmetically and operationally, they're exactly the same. So we are expanding our world to be available, not just wireless, but wired, wireless, different. Oh, not to mention the unit with the video and the webcam. That's expanded the corporate market because of everything we just said. There's so many different things from that point of view.
All right. So specifically in and around the court market, Adam, you know, what has been the barriers to entry, success points? Like, what's the magic formula there? Are the courts just not, because I would assume that they don't exactly know what the right thing is they're asking for. Like they in their mind, they probably know what they want, but they don't know how to ask for it. And so what's the approach there? You're muted, Adam.
And that's obviously part of the questions with courts. They know what they need. They don't know how to express it. Right. So it's our job as integrators in audiovisual. We have to make sure that we're putting the right technology in. And when we look at it from a LAVNCH perspective versus a traditional ceiling speaker, microphone, we have the challenges of infrastructure. Are we going to be able to put speakers in the right location? So we're not trying to necessarily convince the customer it's the right solution. We're trying to put the right solution in for the customer. Right.
Yeah.
So that goes back to when you have the capability to put speakers where you can actually hear. You have the capability. So even though we're moving the DSP audio processing to Biamp, for instance, right, the manufacturer of DSPs, we still have all the capability that's built inside LAVNCH that we can pre-program what a witness delegation station is going to do. They can't hit mute. They're not allowed to hit mute, right? Their microphone is always live. Judge has a certain solution that's put on their delegate microphone. You're able to do that with LAVNCH, where you can't necessarily do that with the traditional speaker microphone application. So it's not so much that we're trying to tell people, or, you know, explain it to the courts. The courts also like the look and the feel. Right.
You know, Gary, also we've had our U.S. office for LAVNCH now for 6 years, direct, no more distribution. We are on U.S. premise with all the engineering, all the support and everything. And we've gone to the end users shows, city and courts and otherwise. And it's amazing how many end users go, this is really interesting. How come nobody ever shows us this? And I tell them, I said, look, it's nobody's issue it's really, we're in a DSP country, and we couldn't play ball in the DSP world up until recently. Well, CTI was one of the first national integrators to really embrace us, and I appreciate them. I said, thanks for not only paying attention, but giving us a shot at going, will this make a difference in your end user? Because when people find us, I'll give you one example. During the pandemic, city clerk said, I need a simple system to meet and hook up to Teams and Zoom. We're far apart, no problem. Within 15 seconds, we brought the wireless and they said, done. And then I said, okay, let's do a vote. They go, vote? I said, yeah, do you have time for lunch? And then they go, what are you talking about? I go, look at your unit. And there's a question I just typed in. Do you have time for lunch? And there's 3 buttons, yes, no, or abstain. And they all picked no because it was 9:30 in the morning. But ideally, the point was, they didn't know that existed. And they said, so could we get that later? Yeah, add that on later. You don't have to change any hardware. It's a license-based system, one-time purchase, CapEx, and you go expand on it. So salespeople found that not only engineering solves a problem, but it allows expansion into ways that the end users in America had no clue they even could, like request to speak mode. What's that? You have choices. Just go in and click here. Oh, you hate it? Go back to direct speak, hands-free. Never try it again. But do that with a DSP design. You have to go in and reprogram everything. Well, not with a Televix system. And now we give the keys to the car to Brian and Adam and go, design away, do what you want, and we'll just keep making good hardware and making sure it's connected the way you need it to.
Well, I want to kind of ask the same question of Brian, because you explained how the courtrooms use this, Adam. I'm curious. I mean, obviously you're in healthcare, Brian. Where is the game-changing, low-hanging fruit application for AV companies or for the client in this case?
So again, I think going back to, I think the pandemic is what kind of catapulted at least me being able to bring up these discussion, microphones in every design. When you and I are sitting in front of our computer and you could see each other and you could clearly hear each other and you have that kind of one-on-one intimate setting, there's no better way of accomplishing that feat by putting a microphone and a speaker right in front of someone. And as a matter of fact, what's becoming more and more prevalent in all of our designs are, ACPR or camera tracking or leveraging AI for facial recognition. So being able to have and not have to leverage, longitude and longitude directional microphones. And is it going to come in my direction or not? So it's a huge, huge value add when we're trying to get, that intimate reaction, individual reaction that we had for those 2 or 3 years during the pandemic.
It was interesting, Gary, to tag on that was historically, like corporations would be the best example of this. If many years, people would say, over my dead body, are you putting that on my corporate table, right? That's just the way it is. And then again, line array microphones are great. But during the pandemic, it kind of shifted where we had some of those people call and say, hey, can we try your system? And I go, aren't you the guy that said over my dead body? He goes, yeah, it's different now. And not that it replaces all of them, because it doesn't, but it's amazing to see how the discussion microphone is now an alternative, just another solution that I think everybody should at least present and say, look, we can do it that way, like we've done for decades, or we can do it this way now. And it gives you flexibility. And when people found out going, hey, wait a second, if we have this in here, just like Brian said, we're going to use it here, the whole floor. So now I have 150 units in my AV closet, ready to charge and ready to go. I'm going to have 10 in here, 15 in here, divided rooms, separate rooms, whole floors or not. You add that communication, because that's what Televix is about, creating better understanding. And by the way, the Unicost unit is the other part, because it kind of tips into this. The all-in-one unit with a mic, speaker, video, touch panel, and built-in webcam, we did not expect what happened to it during the pandemic. It became a corporate solution. Now, and what I mean by that is that unit was designed for meeting management. Meaning, when you want to do voting, you want to do agendas, you want to do all these things and request to speak and who's waiting and all the formality. Throw all that out and just use the hardware and go, what's this? Line of sight, ease of use.
We're showing it right now on the screen as you're talking.
It became an all-in-one AV appliance. Now, the only reason it did was because of DSP mode. We gave,
Yeah.
again, the keys to the designers going, and video routing. So it's
All
like,
right, we have a question
do what
about
you want.
DSP. I have a
Go
question about DSP while we're on this. Okay.
Yeah,
Two
please.
parts to this question. The first is, if the existing equipment in the facility has audio equipment already installed, can you supply the needed mix minus function and connect to it? I kind of know that the answer is possibly.
Well, yeah, no. Actually, within our systems, we've added dynamic mix minus. We've added auto gain share within our system. So that's another improvement that said, if you need us to do the heavy lift on our system and Dante out to you, the answer is yes. So it's not either or, it's both.
So the other question is volume control only automatic via the DSP, or is there an override option for someone to be able to mute or turn down a delegate location? If so, is there a GUI that allows for the ease of identifying the seat that's required for?
Yes, and yes.
So
that's kind of what I said before, is if you want us to go down our core of synoptic view with a picture with all the mics and this, the answer is, of course. That's what we do on a normal basis. And route and coordinate with DSP and control. So the answer is all the above. It gets into the question of who's asking, saying, what's your specific project? And by the way, I tell people around the country, don't plan more than 30 seconds working on Televic. Call us. Let our engineers help design it. Let our engineers help point you in the right direction. And we have a service that will go on site for on-site commissioning and training. So pre-project, we can answer all those questions. But the answer to all of that is yes, and yes.
All right. So Eric Hamilton asked another question. You're going to love this question, Peter. How can we get a demo system sent to our office? Can a demo system be sent out for evaluation and engineering and for hands-on immediately?
Absolutely. Yes, and yes. Please get a hold of me. Yeah. We have so much demo equipment throughout the United States. I'm kind of scared to see how much it costs. So, yes.
All right. So considering all that you've talked about and listening to what you're saying here, where does this enter the UC space? Like, where is this a potential solution for UC, considering how popular it is right now?
You know, our latest product that we're launching is Discerno, which is our new engine and the very affordable space that Adam and I are working with, how the courts with Biamp and others. And ideally, that unit has the first of its kind for our systems that has a built-in USB to right to the computer for Teams and Zoom. So those are for different applications, like just plug and play. Moving forward with Teams and Microsoft and Zoom to be approved is our path. So I think that the last 3 years pushed us as a company, saying, oh, many other people value our products for different reasons. There's a big expansion. So there's lots of things on the roadmap of all the different capabilities and things. We'll get there. I think it's just a matter of time, but we appreciate the feedback. That's how we get where we're at. We appreciate it. Tell us what doesn't work, what you need. And I got to tell you, having all those engineers at our disposal, we were very fortunate during the pandemic that they redesigned products in real time. Like, I can't tell you how many times they hated it, but they did it. So owning our own factories and engineering and IP was helping us. And that means going forward, that's a manufacturer you can count on. Yeah. We're not going anywhere. We don't outsource anything. That's all us. So it's a neat company. I have to say, I'm very impressed with Televic. It's the long term.
Well, I think this has been a great session. We've actually answered the questions and some of them were duplicates of the questions asked earlier. I appreciate, Adam. I appreciate your wisdom in the court space, especially courtroom specifically. This has been a really great learning experience, and I've been excited to see how this has developed. And Brian, same on healthcare. Healthcare I know a little less about, but I think there's, that's obviously going to be a market that's not going anywhere. A lot of money in that market, a lot of opportunity in that market, and they have the same meeting and educational space as everyone else has. They just have some different needs with regard to. And I think, Peter, I think Brian's eventually going to come back to you and start asking for gesture-based systems and non-touch systems, because that's where that segment of the market is going. But and maybe that's already been asked.
Bring it on.
I can tell you that's what's going to happen if it hasn't been asked, because I'm gonna give Brian some help here. So you got to go back and tell those 300 engineers or whatever it was that they need to work on that, Peter. And Peter, thank you very much for doing this. This has been a great session. You've educated us. There's a great opportunity here for integrators to sort of amp up audio in a way, and at least I've always said this about when there's new concepts coming in the industry, there's a 100% guarantee that the customer's never going to buy it from you if they don't know what it is. So if you don't mention it to them, they won't ever buy it from you. So you have to kind of educate them and say, hey, by the way, have you thought about this? And you have to kind of break down the application. Is the application one where you need really obviously simple like application? Meaning if I know that if I put a mic in front of everybody and there's a button that says push to talk and everyone can read that button, they're going to know how to use it, right? And so we know it's going to work and it's going to be simple. Now, that means something's got to be sitting on the table. So it means that you can't use it in every application. They may not want something sitting on the table.
Well, you know what? As soon as you said push to talk, though, that actually is a negative in US. Nobody wants to push a button. You can, but we changed it to, we said, you don't have to push anything, just talk. And
Peter, the developmental changes that you've brought to the table bring up Televic in almost every design conversation that I have now. It truly is an option.
There you go. Hey, one last question. Eric just asked, do you have any NFC functionality in these systems?
NFC. I'm sorry. You're
talking
about
communication where,
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? No, we have RFID right now. There's Bluetooth. And I want to say that there is, yes, I want to say there's a lot of documentation.
It'd be a good way to do the handoff of information as to who a delegate is when they sit down. So
we do again, because we do it on a database on RFID at the moment. So I think that's the next question. But yeah, good point. If you see a requirement that we do not have on that, and again, it's coming from the UC and everywhere, we're getting lots of great questions. So keep them coming.
If you think about everyone who has an iPhone sets up their own contact information and they could come through NFC and do that. That would be kind of cool. But in any case, there's a lot of opportunities here for growth. There's a lot of opportunities for ideas. We have also made it possible for you to connect with each one of these on LinkedIn. If you're on the Launch platform, if not, type in their names. Papageorge, easy to remember, Papageorge, Peter. Adam Lofredo, Lofredo, is available on LinkedIn, as is Brian Houdek, which is Houdek. So connect with them on LinkedIn. And Peter, thank you very much for doing this. Thanks to your team and thanks to the production team. We had a lot to try to put up on the screen at the same time and manage these questions. So they did a phenomenal job, Emily, and Carrie. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. We will wrap this up on this exact page you're on now. If you're on LinkedIn, it'll just stay there on LinkedIn. If you're on Launch, then it'll be wrapped up, and all of this recording and all of the stuff we've talked about is on the page. All the products, everything is on the page below. And this video recording will stay here as well, so you can share it with your friends and colleagues. And of course, we appreciate everything you do and the support. And don't forget, all of us will be at InfoComm in a month. So if you want to see this stuff in person, Televic will be there as well. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and have a great day.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.